these are the updates for July and August. I've actually left in some of the June announcements that came out of ISTE, because I know, you know, from my distant memory, what it's like in schools at June and July. You know, when you think people outside, not in education, I think you're winding down towards the summer. They're often the most manic months of the year, aren't they? When you're trying to get yourself ready for September and not make sure you don't have to work through the summer and things, so they can be manic. So I've left them in. I was quickly rushing through them this morning, thinking actually I ought to double check I'm not repeating myself. So there might well be a couple of repeats that I missed, because there's a lot of slides to get through. So we're going to crack on. So we're going to do the ISTE ones first, just by way of a reminder. And very apposite that the first thing is Gemini Teams. It's still not here yet, as far as I know. I did a quick check yesterday, couldn't find anything, but it is on its way. I think that has the potential to be really interesting. Yeah, and all those ethical questions that Gaz has got to tease out. You know, he's going to be our expert, giving us updates every month on that when it arrives, I'm sure. So that would be really interesting to see how that grows. And if you're using the Gemini prompt, if it hasn't arrived yet, then it will arrive soon. It says in the coming months, but I think I've been told that it's arrived on some domains now. Basically, they're saying that you're not being used for any kind of training for everything else. It just comes to you and only to you, and it's used for your searches, but they don't use it to train the model. So it gives you an extra level of protection, which is kind of quite handy to know. That's that one. Is anyone involved in the pilot for Gemini and Google Classroom? No. The slide deck will give you a link. It's like it's a form to fill out. I know we can't get out, and they never let us onto these things because they're always education focused. So because we're a commercial business, they never let us in. So I've given up trying to ask. After months of complaining that they never let us in, because I am an educator at heart, I think still. But actually, it's a little bit like a gem from what I can see from the video, if you're familiar with gems yet, because they have launched now. It's basically like a lesson planning template, and you fill the details out and then it produces a lesson for you. And so that I think could be really, really good. And I was talking to a school yesterday about this. Of course, good for early careers teachers, because they need to learn their trade, but actually experienced teachers as well, I think, will really benefit from it, because they'll be presented with things, think, oh, I wouldn't have done it that way, but that sounds quite interesting. So it gives you the chance to extend your set of resources. And I think we all, certainly it's true of me, and I presume it's true of most teachers, is that you get a good set of tools that work, and you're a successful teacher, so you keep using them. So it's nice just to be jolted into saying, oh, there's a different way to deliver this. So I think it's good for all teachers at all stages, regardless of where you're at. But of course, that does require a Gemini license, but that's in pilot currently. Anyone got access to Google Vids yet? Yeah, I've requested, but I've not been let in. So I might, if we've got time at the end, Dave, I might ask you what you think about it, but I'm going to leave it till the end if that's okay. It's basically a new video creation tool. Chris loved Dave from Bart and Pebble. He's really raving about it. He really likes it. But I've requested access and not got access yet. But it's just a way to create videos of your own, creating stories, integrated tools, all that kind of stuff. So I think hopefully that will continue to grow and we'll get access. When I did this, these are publicly available websites, and I put the video into my slide deck, and I got my messages this morning saying there's 2 videos I can't actually show, and that's one of them. That's again to do with Google Vids. It's about quality of the video. I'm not going to dwell on that too much because I might hopefully pick Dave's brain at the end, and that will give us an idea. This I think is quite nice, and you might already be seeing this because it was in the coming weeks, whereas in an assignment in Google Classroom now, you get a little bit of information about the status of the document that the students either turned in or not. It tells you when they were last edited and things. So it's quite nice just to see. I don't think it's a great insight. It doesn't tell you what level of engagement or what level of understanding or anything. It just tells you when they last went into the document and edited it. So that's kind of quite nice. I quite like that as an idea. That's quite good, particularly because you're thinking, well, if you've not touched it for 6 days, maybe I need to reach out and say, oh, do you need some help with this because it's due tomorrow, for example. Excuse me. This, however, is great. Groups in Google Classroom, absolutely fantastic. I don't know how many times I've asked for Google Groups when I'm thinking, what thing shall I ask for this time? Because I'm forever filling out requests for extra functionality. And the fact that you can create groups even before you set the first assignment, so you can have those differentiated groups in there, is an absolute game changer in Google Classroom. We waited a long time. Gazzy's not in. Yeah, we waited a long time for that. Should have been here years ago. But yeah, absolutely, Dave. Really, really good. And of course, you can go and edit them later. So if students do improve at a rate you didn't expect, you can move them from one group to the next and change the tasks that they get. So that's fantastic. I'm really pleased that that's arrived. I know some people aren't necessarily early years, but you might run kind of nursery nurse courses if you're at the FE level or older level and things. If you're not looking at read along yet, you really should for early years things. The reading scale, it uses a Lexile scale to measure them. I think it goes up to about 1200, 1300 on the Lexile scale, which is equivalent about the average reading age of a 12, 13-year-old. They are aimed at children, of course. You know, if you've got ESOL courses, you know, we know the research tells us all reading is good practice. So if your ESOL adults don't mind doing, you know, children's books to practice reading, then you could also reuse it with them. But of course, it's not age appropriate for them. But it's really, really good. And there's a whole load of brilliant things in it. So it's built into Google Classroom. So you can assign reading tasks with within Google Classroom, and you get details back and you get analytics back. And we'll see this in these next slides and long things. So you can give them assignments based on Lexile scale, and I think in this one you see it pop up on the left there. You can see you choose the Lexile scale and it filters out, so you choose an age appropriate piece of reading, which is really good for the students, which is fantastic. Moving on, come on, because these are all the same things. These all read along. Yeah, they talk about English, and I don't know if I've said before, Chris, are you able to let people in? Are you able to do that? Yeah, good. I think when they say English, I'm not sure if they just mean English UK. When they first release things, when they say English, they usually mean English US. But once it's been here a while, and this has been here a little while, it does sometimes mean all versions of English. But you'll have to check that for yourself. It might only be English US at the moment. I haven't checked that. I do apologise. But the next language support they come along with is Spanish. And so your early years, you know, year 7, year 8, who if Spanish is your MFL, then actually that might well be a really useful thing for you to use there, I think. So that's good to know. Here's the next exciting bit. You get, this is one of the videos that doesn't play. Yeah, it doesn't play. Okay, but you get insights. You can see. I think if you once you got the slide deck, if you just don't get it in present mode, it should still play. I think it did for me. It's just when I went to present mode, it said I couldn't do it. You get insights about the progress, like words per minute read and all those kinds of things, which is a brilliant thing to get. You know, if you've got those nursery nurses thinking about that, it's great for them. This is also fantastic that you can actually ask it to create a brand new story based on words that a student's struggling with. That is just, you know, and you can see that those are the words. It shows you the words that the child's struggling with. So you say, well, put that into a new book for them at an appropriate reading age for that child. What a result, you know. And I know some people on the call aren't in the primary sector, but that's fantastic. I don't think read along will ever replace a reading scheme. If this one, Oxford Reading Tree is still the most popular one, certainly in England. I don't think they'll ever replace that, but as an additional tool to allow them to access reading in a different way, I think it's a brilliant idea. So it's definitely something that primaries should look at. So this is also really exciting. We've had interactive questions in videos for a little while now. You'll now get the option for AI to suggest where those questions should appear, which is great. And like all AI, there's that American guy, whose name I can never forget, who says, we're using the worst AI we're ever going to use. It's only going to get better. So it won't be perfect. There will be questions like, well, I don't need to ask that question, or it's in the wrong place, or so you won't get a perfect solution, but it'll do 70–80% of your work, which means you've got more time to do other things, which in my mind is a fantastic thing. So to actually stick a video up in there and then get suggested questions in suggested locations, I think is a fantastic thing. So that's really exciting. I'm really pleased that that's going to arrive. This is a repeat. I think I did this in June. I think you're probably on. He's now there. It wasn't there in June when I announced this. You've always been able to convert forms, or for the last few months been able to convert forms to practice sets. One thing to remember: if you've got a multi-section form, a multi-page form, it doesn't cope with the sections. It just sticks all the sections at the bottom. So it will extract all the questions in the sequence that they're in your form, and all the sections get lumped to the bottom, and you've just got to delete them. That's I haven't seen it doing anything else other than that. And Education Plus and Teaching and Learning only for those, and just to be clear. But you can also now add images, which is great. That's a long-awaited piece of functionality, really. To add an infographic about the question to help the student ask the question is another way of adding a help resource. So that's a good thing that you can do that now. So that's great. This is quite a nice little thing, I don't know what your mark book is like. No mark book is ever complete, is it? There's always some little bit of work that for some reason some kids miss, and you never can seem to catch up with it, despite all the chasing that you do. So to be able to go into the grade book and just to make some changes and alterations to it is really, really good. And then the students also got a student view of their grades across the year as well. And you'll notice that the bullet points on the left there, the first two are in brackets for all editions, but the student view is only Education Plus only. So it's the more the students see their progress and see the work they've done and the marks they've got and have that overview, the better, isn't it? There was some of you may remember Jeremy Taffler, who was the assessment guru at QCDA, and before it left, he was there for years. And his kind of mantra was not in your head, but in theirs. Yeah, it's all very well and good to have a beautiful mark book full of all sorts of grades, but the child's got no sense of how they're making progress or whether they are making progress. Then it's just a measuring exercise. It's not a useful thing. So they need to know as well. So the fact that they've now got a student view in Education Plus and Teaching and Learning versions is a really good thing, I think. So I'm to applaud that. So that's that one. Updates to Screencast. Anyone using Screencast on Chromebooks? The option to record things a little bit from Dave, maybe. It's a great tool. Don't forget that once you've done it, if you've done an instruction video, when the student gets to it, they've got a drop down of languages, so they can change the transcript language to their first language. So it gives them easy access to that. It doesn't change the words, the voice, of course, the audio, but it changes the language. Yeah, and you can edit it. You can say, no, don't show that bit, crop that bit, cut that bit. So you've got a lot of control, and you can also add paragraphs in now, so they can jump if there's only one bit of it they need to see because they've understood the first bit. They can jump to the relevant paragraph. So it's getting better and better and better, which is good. But only works, of course. You can only create them on a Chromebook, and you can share them out now. They're standard WebM videos now, so you can share them beyond your domain as well if you want to. I don't know what you get in terms of the transcript. I don't think you would get that. I think it would just export as a standard WebM video. It's only within Screencast. Yeah.
Just on that, Roddy's put a comment in about that very thing. Just wish we could use it on other devices in Chrome. Would that work on a Flex device? Do we think Chrome Flex device? Yeah. Just as kind of another option, maybe. I know it's not perfect for everybody's fit, but it could be something that may be worth considering.
Yeah. Yeah, I've not heard any rumors about any changes to make it available onto any other devices. My suspicion is they probably don't want to, because it's a USP of a Chromebook, isn't it? So I think it's great. I think it needs to be used. It's a really useful thing. And you can put your face in it if you want to, or you can take your face out. That's entirely up to you. When you record it, that's in the settings. It's a great tool. The number of videos, I think video generally is a great tool, because students are used to accessing it, aren't they? They watch video a lot, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or whatever. So it's a really common medium for them to consume things with. So to be able to demonstrate key bits of your lesson delivery, as a reminder for the kids, or a revision tool, or just as an additional support, is a really, really valuable thing. And they don't take a huge amount of time to create, especially, and they don't have to be perfect. YouTube's been great for that. As long as the audio is good, people will put up with only an average quality video in terms of, how good an image it is and so on and so forth. As long as it's clear what they're demonstrating. Dave, you want to say something there?
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, I think the thing is with both Screencast and potentially with Google Vids is that our staff tend to just use the recording over Google Slides. It's a tool that they're more familiar with, they're using on a day-to-day basis. The translation and transcript of it is great, but often that's not deemed to be as necessary. I think I see Screencast as kind of the next step on for those staff who want to kind of create something and then be able to edit it. But it tends to be quick and dirty jobs that they want to do, and for that reason they tend to go to the record function within slides now rather than looking at screencast or Google Vids. Google Vids we have access to. I mean, I was nodding earlier, but I've not actually used yet, but I'm more than happy, you know, should time allow at the end to run through it with you guys and we can learn together. But I just wanted to interject that it tends to be that staff are happier using the tools that they're most familiar with in the first and then when they come and say, well, actually, wouldn't it be great if we could, then I point them towards screencast. So it's kind of starting to be used a little bit, and I do see the benefits of it personally, but I'm not really in a position where I'm creating too much with it at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then kind of the talking over a slide deck is good, but what this allows you to do is demonstrate, you know, the solution of a maths problem, or, you know, whatever subject you happen to be, you know, writing a cadence in a piece of music and things like this. So it allows you to do more than just talk over a slide. I mean, clearly you can have some really dynamic slides where that becomes much more interactive. But yeah, it's an interesting one, actually. Interesting that's the way it seems to be. So presentation over slides is the gateway drug, and this is the heroin. Okay, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And Dave, moving on. So one to look at anyway, that's for sure. This is also quite nice. I mean, you've been able to record your screen for quite some time using a video and doing screenshots and things. Whenever you press the screenshot button, this is what comes up. But you can just about see the bit in the middle where it says record. There's a little drop down that changes it from video to recording a little GIF. So if you want to stick a GIF into a slide deck of just one little bit of your screen, then you can now do that, which is great. Again, only on Chromebooks, of course. Do people go here? This is a Google for Education app hub. Basically, you know, if you look on the left, you can see you can filter by subjects. So if you've got teachers within your organization saying, how do I do, or is there an app that, it's a really good place to go, because you can't know everything. Yeah, so just go and have a look and see what's already on offer and what Google are saying and things. It's a really useful place, because you can go and do a straight search in Marketplace, can't you, or the App Store and things. But actually, this is organized specifically for education, so it should allow you to find things a little bit easier. So it's definitely one to be aware of. It's been there for a long time, but the filtering has been improved now, so it's a bit easier to find stuff. That's all that's happened. And I think we covered this before. E-signatures, Education Plus only, really neat. I think it's like 200 fields and 20 signatories in a document. Why you would need that many, I don't know, but you might need 2 or 3, mightn't you? But you can send it. I've checked this. What I do know is that if there's a critical path, you've got to have person A signed before person B before person C, that is not available. You add the 3 people that need the signature, and whoever signs it first signs it first. So if there has to be a sequence, then it wouldn't necessarily work this way. And it just makes a PDF, so you can't even do person 1, wait for them to sign it, and then do person 2, because it would make a second PDF. So it's good, certainly for a single signature. You know, contracts and things, these are legally binding things now. It doesn't have to be what people call a wet signature now. Electronic is absolutely fine. And there's not a window where you type, where you sort of write your signature in. It's you physically type your name and it turns it into a kind of a font that looks like a handwriting signature. But again, legally binding, I understand, and GDPR compliant, just so you got it there, which is good. Few new bits added to the accessibility stuff in Chromebooks. There's an option to do OCR onto PDFs, so you can convert into text. Facial expression and head movements, I haven't actually tried yet. I have no idea how it works. You can see the little video there of the woman doing it, but I haven't had a chance to try. But the voices that are in it, I don't know if anyone tried Chrome Vox when it first came out. It was like max headroom. It was terrible. The voices were awful, but much more natural sounding voices, and a range of voices to choose from. You can also download additional voices from the App Store if you don't like the voices that you've got, just as a side note, if you wanted to do that. Dark's theme in the mobile app for Google Classroom. If honest, I didn't even know that wasn't there, but it's there. That is included another video that doesn't play. I think that's already here now. Handwriting tools. Google, the whole thing about learning to write in primary schools is a big one, and kind of useful fonts that it seems as if however many they make, there's never the one that suits everyone. There's always another school that has a slightly different method of teaching kids how to write. That means that one doesn't work for them. And it's to do with the way that the tails join to next letters, like N, the N joins to the S and the R to the Y. And they just can't agree from school to school how these might work. So more there. So they might make more people happy. But I suspect there'll still be some that says, no, it's still not what we want because we do it this way. But they're trying, which is good. Fonts.google.com gets you there if you want to have a look at those things. I'm very mad with myself that I didn't do this today because this is now on our domain. You can set up a calendar event, and you then go back into the calendar event and say, yes, take notes on Gemini, record it and do a transcript. So you can set them up before the meeting. So once you set up the event, you do all of those things. And then as soon as the meeting launches, those things just automatically kick in, which is really neat. Because we've always had to go in and turn them on at the beginning of each lesson, each session. So if I'd done that today, because of course this is a repeating 12 repeat session, it's set them up for them all, you see. So it just means that every single month. So I will set it up for next time, but I forgot to do it for today. But I think that's a great little bit of addition, particularly for repeating events that all need to be recorded. You set it up for the first one and they'll all get done, which is great. Okay. Are people using appointment scheduler in Google Calendar? Yeah, great tool. I've got several of them. I've got a 30-minute meeting, a 60-minute meeting, a one-day meeting, and things. I've also set them up where if we've had a customer that says, Paul, I need to meet you and Jamie and Chris, can you set up a meeting? I'll set up an appointment schedule just for that particular thing with all those 3 calendars in. And it just shows the gaps that all 3 of us have, so the customer can book a gap and he knows we're all going to be free, which is fantastic. But you've now got the option to make a few more options. The option to add extra people is fantastic because that's not been there. So I've had to go in manually, and if someone says, oh, can you invite these people, and add them in, but the guest can now add other people in, and any co-host that you identify can also add other people in. Adding the co-host is that you do when you set up the appointment scheduler in the first place. It's a great thing, I think. So that's that one. I'm sure you're all aware of smart chips, and hopefully that you're using them. They save a great deal of time. And those who are not fully aware of them, your smart chips are the things that are in the menus anyway, but just by going at and then typing the name of the smart chip that you want, it just appears in front of you. You just press tab and it enables it in the document, so it's quicker. Saves you going back to the menus and back to your mouse, back to your and so on and so forth. We get in the first few third-party apps in there. So if you happen to have Lucidchart or Lucid Spark accounts, you can start to add in links to that app so that those documents will get added in there, and you can just link and connect to them that little bit easier and things, and to tasks and things, which is really rather neat if you're using those things. If you're not, then it kind of doesn't make a particular big difference for you here. Okay. There's a new host control to do with add-ons in Google Meet, which is quite interesting. So if it's on, it's about whether people can engage in the add-ons that you've added into your Google Meet. Yeah, if you turned it on, then they can all start an activity. So if I'd got it, I'm not checking more settings here. If I've got any add-ons in here, you could all, in theory, go and start an activity in that add-on using my account, in effect. If it's off, you can join an activity if I start one, but you can't start one of your own. So it just gives you a level of control. So if, for example, there's an app in there that the kids really like and you plan to use it, because you're doing a remote session with them for whatever reason, then if you turn it off, you can start the activity. They can join the activity, but they can't start one of their own. So just to be aware of that. And that's available to all. I presume it's because you can all add apps and you can all pay for your apps and things if they're paid for versions of it and things. So that's inside Google Meet. This is really neat. I like this because, we do a lot of stuff online. We are forever going to do demonstrations and things and leaving the Meet, and not always necessarily. I got this slide deck is being presented into the Meet so I can control it inside the Meet, so I'm still in the Meet, but that's not the case every time. It's not the way we choose to do it every time. So the fact that when you leave the Meet and go to demonstrate on a document, for example, and you get this picture-in-picture, so you will always see the people in the meet. That's really neat. That, I think, is a feature that we will be really glad of once it's kicked in. It's not on our system yet, so when it does arrive, that will be nice to see. I say that it might be here now. I checked yesterday.
I was going to say, Paul, I've actually got that. That works for me, and it is the most useful thing, because it basically stacks the people above in miniature as well, so you always get to see the people on the meet. And like with things like this, where I've got other things on the go and whatnot, I can keep up to date with it. I can see everybody. You can see the attention and whatnot. Yeah, super handy. Super handy.
Is it working for other people? Are people having a flip to other tabs, and is it jumping out for you? No, I know from Dave.
Oh, I've finally got something Dave hasn't got. Fantastic. I knew it'd happen eventually.
Hair. There you go.
Well,
Dave's not got.
At the moment, probably, yeah.
But, you know that thing I said about kindness? I'm doing really badly.
That lasted about, what we are now? That lasted 24 minutes, Paul. Well done. Well done.
Dave, I'm so sorry, Dave.
But yeah, a really useful feature as and when it lands on your domain. Yeah, super
it could be not working for me because I'm in present mode. That might well be why.
Possibly, yeah.
So the little video, they weren't in present mode, were they? So this is also, I haven't had a chance to play with this, but I think this is really interesting. So inside your Google Chat, you've always been able to add on third-party apps, you know, like polls and these kinds of things. And that's increasing all the time. So you can add more and more in there. And you can now integrate chat with IFTTT. If people aren't aware of that, it stands for if this, then that. And it's a kind of a app that sits between your apps. So you can say, look, if someone posts this, if I post this to X, then also post it to Instagram. You know, it's that kind of thing. Or if I posted it to this, save it to my drive. There's a whole load of ready-built, I think they were called menus, if I remember rightly, that you said, if I do this task, then also go and do this thing. And they're now building that in there. And I'm presuming the UKI Flow thing is a similar kind of thing. It integrates from one thing to another. So you can send stuff across from one place to another. It's just about a neat way to integrate all those things across multiple platforms, basically. I haven't checked what the admin implication for that is. I suspect there need to be some allowing in the admin panel for that, but I don't actually know what that would mean. But you know, anything that saves you doing a task, if it will automate something, it's got to be a good thing, isn't it? You know, but to be used judiciously, I suppose. Is that the right word? This is also very exciting. When Gemini first came out, you were limited with the number of docs that you could upload for it to inspect. That is increasing as time goes on. So you can see the list of the documents that it will now accurately read. And the reading is fantastic. I uploaded a picture. It was a JPEG, actually, which is interesting. It's not on there. So it must have been another image type. I wonder what type it was. Anyway, it was certainly, I'm pretty sure it was a JPEG. Uploaded a picture of a load of images of items of clothing from my Italian lesson and said, can you give me the Italian for these? It read it, and it also noticed that each of the items was numbered, so it also numbered them. Didn't ask it to do that. So it's actually a really intelligent reading of images and documents and things. So it's really, really good. And you've got that functionality in Gems as well. Gems is brilliant. If you haven't got that, then it's definitely worth thinking about getting yourself one. Okay. Extensions for Mail, Drive, and Docs are available in open beta. If I'm honest, I haven't added them onto mine yet, so I haven't had a chance to play. So if anyone has, perhaps you could give me a little insight into it. It's like, it will behave like most add-ons. It's going to be a little panel that pops out. But if you need, in order for them to work, if you need the Gemini Standard or Education Premium, then it seems to me that you've already got a pop-out window where you can add in requests of Gemini. So I'm not quite sure what additional things it gets. The only bit I could pick out that it said was that we get more relevant responses, but you tell it to reference the document you're in, and I think how much more relevant does it get? So I've yet to play with that. So I might come back to that next month and give a little bit of insight as to how those work, so you've got a better idea. But they do require the license assigned to your account. So if you haven't got a Gemini license, then it's not going to make a difference either way. Policy visualization, normally you would expect you see these things as policy being an admin person, but what this tells you is it allows you as a user to see what policies are being automatically applied. So if you've got labels being automatically applied, data loss protection rules, those kinds of things, those should be available for you to see in your document. And you can see it's an additional little kind of shield thing appears next to the star there that tells you what things have been done to that document based on the contents and things. And if you're not aware of that, basically you've got a thing, labels, so you can label documents now, and I presume they kind of behave like meta tags, or they are in fact meta tags, so that it allow you to search and find things. But once labels are attached to a document, you can actually reference those labels in data loss protection rules inside the admin panel. So your administrator can say, if this is labeled finance, then don't let it share outside the organization unless the people are in the finance group. If they are in the finance group, have a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to share this information? So you can set all sorts of rules that increase the protection of the data within your organization. And that just gives you an insight as to what those policies are that are attached to that particular document. There's some nice additional functionality in the admin panel, the updates for the admin panel tomorrow, about all the labels and policies and label manager and things, but I'll cover those tomorrow. This is also quite nice, I think. So I'm sure you all know about guardians. That's always been the case. What traditionally happens, if in case you've never seen it, is when a guardian accepts the invite, and they've got to accept the invite, otherwise they get nothing, and to be a guardian, they get a PDF, which is a summary of the student's work and work they've done, work that's outstanding, and I think they get comments as well, if I remember rightly. But they now get the option to see the student's work page within Google Classroom if you've got an Education Plus account. So they see a little bit more detail. It's only that one page they see. They don't see anything else. Can't browse from there to another page. Just shows them what this. In the 3 bars on the left, you've got the to do, and I forgot what the teacher one is to do, and the student one is. Can't remember what the student label is, but there's a label there where they can go to that rather than going to each individual classroom to find the assignments and click on them. You get a single page where all their outstanding assignments are. It's that page that the parent gets a view of, and it's a view only page. They can't click on anything, but they do get to see any attachments provided by the teacher. So it just gives you an idea of what they're doing, which is I think is a good thing. The more the parents know, for those who are going to bother to look, the better. So these are parents that are engaged, will be looking at these things, aren't they? So that's a good thing. So that's really nice. I'm really pleased that that's there. Any Google Drive, any document, no, any video in Google Drive now will automatically have captions created using speech recognition technology, which is really interesting. Again, all the prompts say English. I'm assuming because this is brand new, it's probably English US. So if your English in your domain, which almost certainly is set to English UK, it might not be doing it currently. Yeah. But of course, as with always the case, localization will happen. So other languages will come along, and it's usually by usage. And as English generally is the most used language in the world, still probably only just about. English UK is probably likely to be fairly high up the list. But we'll have to wait and see. But I suspect it's English US. I haven't checked that, but because it doesn't specifically say. But I suspect it is just English US. When they first launch these things, that's usually what they mean. I mean English US. And no debates now, please, about whether it's even English anymore. Come on, behave. This is quite nice as well. Multiple selections in a drop down in a Google Sheet. So you don't necessarily just have to have a single selection or multiple drop downs with a selection from each. So that's quite nice. And the example there is a good example where you might choose to have more than one option in the drop down. So that's quite nice. Interesting to see how it then reads it and how you manage that data if you're doing calculations from it. I'm not sure how that works, but that's quite a nice little feature. So a little bit more functionality in Google Chats to be able to catch up on threads that you've missed a little bit easier. And you'll see that there's additional buttons appearing. The thread button at the top allows you to build into that. See, that's been there a little while, isn't it? Yeah, just to show that the threads that you need to read through. So it just makes the navigation through these things that little bit easier should you need to do that. Okay, so in Google Drive, up till now, there's been a limit to what you could actually properly get a summary of, and PDFs wasn't in the list, whereas now you can. So you can actually, all the different types of PDFs will be there. So it will summarize them. You can interrogate the content inside the PDF, and you can also create new content by interrogating that data and creating a new document from it, which is really quite nice. Okay. And if you haven't clocked it, when you're in Drive, if you want to reference a specific document, you just go use the @ symbol and start to type the name of the document, and a list of options appears, so you can actually get it to reference specific documents in your Drive by doing that. It works in the Gemini prompt in whichever app you're in. You can reference other documents in your Drive. Just use the @ symbol and start to type the name of it, which is really nice. But of course, as before, it requires you to have a Gemini license assigned to your account. So if you haven't got that, then that's not an option for you. And has anyone not got a Gemini education license yet? Gaz hasn't, and Charlie hasn't. And I'm presuming, Charlie, you'd have to pay for it yourself. But Gaz, you need to be on the IEG's case, because it's just...
I'm all over it. Mine's not through lack of trying. We even had Steve came down and gave a blooming talk to SLT, and they were like, yeah, we're going to get it, and we'll get it before the deal runs out. And it still sat with my chief operating officer to sign off.
All right. Okay.
Should I chip in here? I think you've got them, Gaz. You know what Dave's going to say, Chris will just push anything through. I think they are they are actually, according to me. Yeah. Let me just have a scan here.
I'll have to check with my IT then.
Yeah, just double check. You got 25. They came over on. Yeah, they came over on the 21st of August. So I don't know if that's when you were escaping a tornado, possibly.
I was in Turkey then.
Oh, you're in Turkey. Yeah, you like to get around.
Yeah, I'll check. So thanks, Chris. Thanks,
yeah, double check.
Yes,
they are on there. Yeah, we got the order through for 25. So at the discounted rate, Dave, just before you come in.
Oh, we got it.
You just need to get your admin to assign it. It's assigned instantly, basically. So it's nice and quick. As soon as you've done it, it's there.
Fab. Thank you.
Brilliant. Excellent. This is a little bit of Gemini for all, basically. And they're getting keen on these tables. I mentioned these tables before. Tables are great. They're really, really neat. So you can convert them into a table so it looks that little bit nicer on the page. It will change the data types for columns automatically when you do this. And you basically just highlight your table of data, and the convert to table button should appear in the bottom right hand corner for you, which is really neat. And once you've got a table created, you can create formula and reference the table. So if you look at this example, it's called tasks. I think this one is called tasks. So I'd say count dates after this by looking in tasks, and then to reference the column, you'd put it in square brackets. So it'd be tasks, square brackets, start date, close square brackets. So you can reference columns in a thing. So if you wanted to add columns up, you say, and so on and so forth, or count in a column and things. So you can reference tables in formula. But of course, if something's already called tasks, you can't call a table tasks. So each table's got to be uniquely identifiable for it to work. But also, in effect, creates an absolute reference when you're doing your formula. So, once you've got a table tasks in this example in your formula, if you copy it down, of course, it's an absolute reference, so it doesn't change the reference, the cell references, because it's an absolute reference. So it's a great tool. I'm a great fan of. In effect, it's like a named range. And I'm a huge fan of named ranges. If you're not using named ranges in your formula, if you do use named ranges, the formula looks much more like natural language. So instead of it being cell references, it says, count tasks, this column. It's easier to understand what the formula does. So if you aren't naming ranges, I really encourage you to do it and to use tables. It's a great additional tool, and we're already using it quite extensively. I think I've got a slide about this, but it also, if you've got a form attached to a sheet, when the data comes to the sheet, it will now, with new ones, not forms you've already created, but new ones that you create, it will automatically create a table in there. So it'll give you, I think the table will be called form responses 1, because that's usually what the form's called, I think. And that's the way it works. Okay. So I didn't even know this was a thing. I thought you could always do this. So I was surprised when I read this. And then I thought back and like, oh, perhaps I've never have done this. So in the past, if you scanned stuff, you were limited in what you could choose as the format when you scan. This is all on Android. And you can now tell it to save the scanned item as a JPEG should you want to. So you've got that. That's on your mobile if you're using Android devices. You've also now got better Gemini AI on your mobile. If you've got a Gemini license, of course, that still applies. So you should be able to, you've got the refine and redraft and things. You get the option to make it that little bit better in terms of your, your responses. And you've got to replace and you've got to refine and read. I think it's a redo. The circular arrow is redo, which is quite nice. I was using, I should tell you actually, not so much for mine, but for the admin one, yes, tomorrow. A lot of the, I've said this before, I can read the text. I know that each word is English, but I don't necessarily know what it's telling me. So I've been using Gemini in my updates emails saying, can you convert that into bullet points I can use in a slide deck? So if there's a complete and utter nonsense in the updates tomorrow in the bullet points, it's because I didn't know how to check whether it was actually true or not. So let me know how accurate it is. I don't care that I got it wrong. I care that I know that I got it wrong. So do tell me, I'll be there. So it'll be interesting to see how good you think the bullet points are. So that's, yeah. So that's to do with, again, on the Android device. If you've got Education Premium or Education on your account, then you should get the option to use that in there as well.
Sorry, Paul, I was just going to say, just on the sort of the search side of things as well. You know, I'm increasingly using Gemini as a search option. Any of those old enough to remember things like Ask Jeeves, where you used to put a massive sentence into something and you get a reply back. It works so much better than Google search for me. If you've got quite a detailed thing to ask it, it seems to returning a much more thorough and precise kind of information than that. Obviously the Google search, if you've just got a fairly, focused search to go for, but yeah, I'm finding it increasingly successful and useful for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, a Google search will say, here are all the places I think the answer is for you. It doesn't give you the answer. It just says it thinks the answer might be in one of these places. And you've got to go through them to check. That's the reality of it. Whereas what Gemini does, it does that search and says, oh, I think this is the answer. But like Chris says, you've got to check. It does sometimes hallucinate. Absolutely. So you must always check. But you challenge it. That's the thing. I've been doing some demonstrations of Gem, and sometimes it does a ridiculously complicated answer to my request. I'm thinking, I know for Macs, and it does all sorts of strange kind of index things. I think, why? So I just say, is there a simpler way? And the second attempt, it does something really simple. It's not yet let me down. So it's you challenge it because it's not what you wanted, and it gives you what you wanted. So anyway, so moving on, these are brilliant. So AI is built on large language models for the most part. This is like an LLM. It's like a limited large language model. So you set the criteria that it's going to work to first. You say, yeah, I'm a music teacher. I'm going to ask you to build lessons for this particular thing. I'll come to that question in a minute. I just saw it pop up. I don't know what it is. And this is what I want you to do. And these are the questions I want you to ask before you actually create the lesson. And then you open up the gem. You've got to wake it up in effect. So you've got to type something. I just type hi, and then it usually produces the questions you've asked it to ask you. You answer the questions, and then it creates the lesson. So it's very focused. It will also ask, one of the questions it asks me is, have you got any resources? So if you've got a worksheet related to that particular activity, you pop that up there, and it'll include that in the activity, or include data inside the document in the building of the lesson. So it's great, absolutely great. That all being said, I think it was feeling a bit unwell this morning because I got 2 or 3 times when it just said, it's Gemini error. I have no idea what's going on there, but its third attempt, it worked fine, worked perfectly. So it's a great little tool. Again, it needs Education Premium or Gemini Education License. So if you go to gemini.google.com and you haven't got that gem, then it's because you haven't got a license. If you have, then it should be there. And they're really quick to do. And it just means that you haven't got to put all the information in, that detailed prompt that Chris talked about a minute ago. You haven't got to put all the details in every time, because you can give a lot of it up front, and then just answer the questions you want for each particular lesson you wanted to create. And again, great for teachers of all ages and experiences. This is just telling you that Gemini is on your Android device. It makes it sound like it's like, you know, they talk about the Q&A inside of Meet. It's not like that. It's just you've got the option to ask it questions. That's all that it means, built into your Gmail now, should you want to. So you're getting more options, and it will start to show you things. But it can do things like, can you show me unread emails? Yeah, and you see, oh, that's prompts that's there, can't you? Yeah, so you can be, and then unread emails from this week, so you can be quite specific. Can you search my inbox for attachments from Gaz Lewis? You know, that kind of thing. So it should be able to, it's that kind of QA. It's not like the Q&A you've got in Meet. It's just the option to interrogate it on your mobile device. Okay. You should start to see this at the bottom of gemini.google.com. When you click on it, this little window will pop up. It tells you that your data you're using is only used for your prompts, and it will not be used to share to improve any of the Gemini or the generative AI models. It just means that your data isn't being used any more widely than for the purposes of your search, which just gives you an extra level of security on your own data, which is kind of quite nice that those are there. Okay, good. Wow, I was worried I wasn't going to get through. There's 44 slides. I don't think I've ever had so many slides. There weren't that many last summer, that's for sure. So next event is Wednesday, the 2nd of October. Any questions about anything? There are no questions. Shall I just quickly show you a gem? People happy to see that? Let's get it open. I'll show you one I've already made, and I'll go into edit mode so you can see. So there's the gem manager down there. You click on that, and then you've got new gem option here. So if I go to show you what's in here, oh, not there. I don't want to go there. It's here. To there, into edit. So I've told it that, given it a title, I've told it I'm a secondary music teacher and what its purpose is to help me create lessons. I've then gone through what I've called the goals and said you've got to include all of these things in that lesson. And I've then gone and said, but there are some details I know, so they'll be the same every time. So the subject will be music, there'll be my name and so on and so forth, lesson duration, the year group. So I've given it the information that will be, you know, pretty common. I've then asked it to ask me some questions, well, topic for the lesson, year group, how long it'll be, a link to any resources. Okay, so I've got all that information in place. I'll just add a space there. So once you've put all that in, and you can see that's an extensive prompt, but that's how I would have done a prompt if I'd just gone to gemini.google.com. I'd say, here's how I want you to behave. I'm a music teacher, or I'm a marketing manager, or whatever it happens to be. Yeah, here's the task I want you to do. Ask me any questions before you proceed. So that 3-step process I would have done in Gemini anyway. I'm just formalizing it here. So you can see that you would get a save. I've got an update because I've already written it. So there it is. And then you'll get it the first time you'll get it. This will pop up in the top because mine's an update. It's in the bottom left-hand corner. Oops, I missed it. So I would start a new chat. So if I go to that music lesson now and I just wake it up just by going hi, it then asks me the questions I need to ask. I complete those questions and then it will give me the lesson plans. So you want to do that. Let's say Killer Queen by Queen, year 10, 1.5 hours. And I'll upload a document. Here we go. From my drive, should go to my recents because I was doing this earlier. Oh, no, I haven't. There we go, that'll do. Hopefully it doesn't break like it did this morning. There we go. So it gives me objectives. I didn't tell it what the objectives should be. Identify key musical elements. Of course, they've got to do that and listed what they are. That's a good one. Understand. Oh, I'm always nervous on understand. I don't know how you measure understand, so I always more active verb than that, but it's okay. Develop their oral skills. Yes, it would do. Collaborate effectively in a group activity. So those are not terrible, but I could adjust those. Is that someone about to say something?
I was going to ask if. Oh, sorry, Chris.
I was just going to say a couple of hands raised. Yeah, Roddy, go for it. Go for it.
Thank you. Firstly, loved this session. Not been to this before. Really super helpful to get ahead of all the exciting changes. Do you share the slides afterwards? I'm asking because I'd like to demonstrate a briefing on Monday, the new Guardian summary feature, and essentially want the same screen to show if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that we do in the sessions, Roddy, the videos, now that Paul automatically records them, that's great. And also the slide decks, they come out on a Thursday evening usually, so
incredible.
Should be Thursday. We've got the techie one tomorrow, and then I try and get everything together and just send it out to the mail list Thursday night. So you will indeed get these. Charlie, I believe you've
I've just put them in the chat as well, so you've got them now, so you can prepare.
Yeah, Charlie, do you want to go next, my friend?
Yeah. Just a quick one, really. Although I've not got education accounts, I've been using the same sort of thing that some people might find useful or interesting, but more for the students. So I've been building the GPTs with personal profiles and CVs in there. So then when they go into it, they just put in the job description, like the job application description, or a website link or whatever. And you just say, write me a cover letter based on my profile, and all their profiles in there. And it's been coming out with some superb cover letters. So you're doing a bit of a fake profile, but the content of the profile in the GPT is what's needed. And other interesting stuff is I'm doing it with quote builders. So I'm working with some air conditioning guys, and one lad he's a young lad setting out on his own, and he's dyslexic. So I built him a GPT, and it works out what percentage he wants on the markup of what equipment, blah blah blah, and it'll just creates a quote for him. So I've had quite a few talks with old sweats in industry, and they're saying, "Oh, I can see it, and I get it done. I don't need all of this." But I'm thinking there's a generation of people leaving colleges now that they could, if they work with old sweats and they've got this technology, they're going to get to that level of experience much, much quicker. So that's just another thing. I thought I'd just chuck it in there.
Great, thanks for that, Charlie. Yeah, absolutely. There was that old adage, wasn't there, that teachers won't ever get taken over by technology, but teachers that use technology will take over teachers who don't. And you just change the technology to AI, don't you? That's the reality of it. My son's got a new teaching post in a private school near where he lives. He's still working as a professional musician, but just feels he needs a little bit more of a regular income because, of course, the professional work comes and goes. So he did it using Gemini. He said, here's the school's website, here's the job spec, write me an application, please. I did tell him, look, you've got to personalize it. He didn't, but he still got the job. Blimey. So he also used it to prepare for questions that he might get. And what was interesting was at the top of the list of questions were all the child safety questions. So they clearly understood that was always going to be a priority in any application for any kind of job in an educational institution. So he said, I never even thought about that, Dad. I thought it'd all be about music. I said, no, absolutely it won't. So he was well prepared. And I think that's what helped him. So it's quite amazing, really. Gaz?
Just with the gems, I love them. I want to be able to share them with people, but currently you can't. Do you know if that's on the roadmap at all? Or are Google looking at adding that functionality? I've suggested it, but I know different people, different ins, don't they? So I thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, I don't know his answer. I mean, we get updates about all the things happening with Google Workspace pretty well, and there's the calendar that also says when they're being launched, so you can also look ahead. So generally with Google Workspace, they do quite a good job at giving us updates and when things are happening, and we get occasional insights into things further afield. We get nothing with Google Gemini, which is a very frustrating for us. The thing I'd like is, because I built myself a lesson builder, I've also built a rubric builder. So I now want to say, you've just built me a lesson in the lesson builder called this. Can you write a rubric for a suggested essay to mark that I can mark for that particular lesson? That's what I want. So I want the gems to talk to each other as well.